Folks, we are very, very close to 70,000 subscribers here on the Kansas City Chiefs Report. We have a very nice number right now, 69,969. One of my favorite numbers. But we can do better than that. 31 away from 70,000 on the channel as we continue to cover free agency, count you down towards the draft. We're talking trade ideas as well, breaking news. We're bringing you live shows every week in addition to our Q&A mailbags. This is your one-stop shop for all things Kansas City Chiefs. Subscribe now for free. Help us reach 70,000 subscribers, and we'll get started with today's show. Glad to have you with us here on the Kansas City Chiefs Report. Tyler Jones here. Appreciate you all stopping by as we have a big update to get to on the salary cap situation. A lot of you have been in the comments, and I've seen some stuff on social media asking me, hey, Tyler, where do we stand with the salary cap right now with the players that have been brought in, with the restructuring that has been done? How are things looking for Kansas City of their cap situation and what they could potentially do? Well, I have a very good update for the folks. This is big. The Chiefs, breaking news, dun, 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 they have money, and a decent amount of it, actually. And let's kind of go over those piece by piece. Let's start with some of the projections that are out there from the experts. We begin with OverTheCap.com. They are estimating that the Chiefs have about $27.62 million in cap space at this point in time. And if you recall, just a couple weeks ago, this team was over the cap with a deficit. So that is a big turn of events, as the great Michael Scott would say, oh, how they turn tables. And that's not all the good news. Spotrac, who's also in the business of going over the salary cap numbers and projections, they are saying that Kansas City has even more money than what Over the Cap is projecting. They estimate that Kansas City right now has about $28.36 million, so a little less than $1 million difference between the two. So if we average that out, I'm not a math guy, but if we meet in the middle between those two numbers, that puts Kansas City at $27.99 million. We'll call it $28 million that they have to their disposal against the cap at this point. And that is a very good spot to be in. Currently, right now, funny how this happened again, there are 69 players on the roster. Nice amount of players at this point. And you think about you can get to 90 is the number that teams are targeting to fill up their roster. And then, of course, we'll have roster cut down day later in August when we get down to 53. So it doesn't take a genius to say that obviously there's more moves on the way that are coming very soon. And you think about this, all right? You got 69 on the roster. You got 8 draft picks on the way as things stand right now. Of course, you could potentially trade away some of your picks. You could bring in more picks. But for now, you know of 8 players that are on the way. So then we take that a step further. Let's just assume that it's going to be 8 based on the number that we know right now. With your 69 roster spots, that means that you have roughly $28 million to spend with 13 roster spots to fill. But you do have to save some of that money towards the draft. And we'll break down those details here in just a moment. But saying all this to say, yes, folks, moves are coming. Be patient. We've seen Brett Veach in the past pay off when it comes to waiting and seeing how the market shapes out a bit. And we're expecting some more players to be released in the coming weeks. You're going to see more moves of players that become available of those post-June 1 cuts as well. So I would say all in all, the Chiefs are in a pretty good spot with money to spend, roster spots to fill at this juncture in time, and the draft coming up with what seems like 8 players on the way right now. What would you grade the Chiefs roster at this point in time? With the 69 nice players that are there, what is your grade for the Chiefs roster as things stand at the moment? Weigh in our pinned comment today, A, B, C, D, or F, and let us know. You might get an ad break while the ad's playing. Get your votes in and weigh in. Let us know what you think. So back to the draft situation when we talk financial terms for a moment here. We mentioned that the Chiefs have, on average, about $28 million in cap space. Typically speaking, when it comes to the NFL draft, most teams, on average, spend about $10 million on their draft picks. Kansas City has more draft picks than the league average with having 8, but because they have 3 7th-round picks, then I think you can look at that $10 million number as a fair estimation. So then let's go ahead and do some moving around here. That puts you in a position of usable cap space right now at about $17 million that you have to your disposal because of the money you're going to spend on draft picks that you could potentially still use today or down the line and bringing in free agents or trades and all of that. And another thing, too, money can be saved for later. Typically what we see is that teams would like to have a little bit of cushion where they don't necessarily spend every penny of their cap right now. That way they can have potential flexibility when the season gets here. If there's an injury or if they feel like they need to get some roster help, whether it's a signing or a trade, something in the midseason to be able to have that flexibility to make a move. So I would say, folks, as we go through this piece by piece, chomping at the bit of this $28 million, based on my estimates, I would expect that the Kansas City Chiefs want to leave about $7 million to their disposal to use potentially in the season if they need to make a move then. So then that leaves you right now of that $28 million with saving money for later down the line and then also saving your $10 million for cap space. I would expect that Kansas City has about $10 million roughly to their disposal to bring in another player at this point in time. So what does that mean? Well, that puts you in position to get a player or two at this point, a quality player or two, whether that's getting a couple guys on a discount that want to go contend for a championship, whether it's just one player that's close to that $10 million threshold. That's what I think is the position that Kansas City finds themselves in. And like what we've talked about previously on this channel, I'll say this. Think about veteran discount guys of who that Kansas City could be targeting. And we've mentioned a couple of the players over the last few weeks that maybe Kansas City can't offer them the amount of money they can get from another team. But if you're a veteran guy that's looking to compete and win a championship, maybe you take less money to go to the Kansas City Chiefs because they're going to give you that opportunity to do so that you're not going to get like with other teams. So something to keep in mind on that front there. Who's a player, speaking of free agency, that the Kansas City Chiefs should sign? Weigh in the comment section. Give me a name that comes to mind that you would like to see in KC in 2025. Weigh in and let us know. Got a great deal for Chiefs fans. Polos are on sale now for up to 50% off. Chatsports.com/Chiefs Polos. Got the red, got the gray. We also have the striped version as well. And we have plenty more polos besides the ones you're just seeing on your screen at the link of chatsports.com/Chiefs Polos. That's where you can find these. Up to 50% off. We also have other Chiefs gear available for your liking as well. It's all in one place. Chatsports.com/Chiefs Polos to get yours today. Now, I would say this, that even though the Chiefs have not had a major over-the-top signing here in free agency because of the limitations that they had in cap space entering this whole ordeal, it has still been a success. And that's even with having to trade Joe Thuney, not being able to re-sign Justin Reed. you kept the key players that were your top priorities here in free agency by franchise tagging Trey Smith, and I think he's going to get a long-term extension as well to stay around here for a long time. By getting a new deal done with Nick Bolton, that was your number one objective. You already have a very good team, a very good roster from last year that went to a Super Bowl. And now what you've done is, with those moves, is you've signaled we are bringing the band back together. And we've heard Brett Veach say in the past that they felt like the draft is their best opportunity to better this roster. Your roster's not much worse than what it was at the end of last year, and now you got a whole draft class coming in. You're in a position of strength, and you can still get better at this point in time, which is exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs intended, what they set out to do, and they're on the right track at this point going forward. You look at some of the free agents Kansas City has signed. We mentioned Trey Smith. Hollywood Brown is back. Nick Bolton. Jaylon Moore. Sounds like he's going to be a tackle, but could be a guard. We'll see. Elijah Mitchell. James Winchester. Kristian Fulton's going to be one of your starting corners in this defense. I think that McDuffie is going to slide to the nickel spot. Robert Tonyan is there. You got 4 tight ends now. Cole Christensen's back. And Mahomes and Chris Jones helping out with the cap situation with those guys restructuring. Gardner Minshew is going to be your new backup quarterback. Bailey Zappi's here. Kareem Hunt is back on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. Jerry Tillery is going to help out your defensive line. And Juju makes his return as well. So I would say things are pretty good, and there's reason to be optimistic about where this thing's going to go forward from here. Appreciate you joining us here on this edition of the Kansas City Chiefs Report. I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe now for continuing Chiefs coverage here on the channel, youtube.com/ChiefsTV. We'll see you next time.